DC's resident archer has arrived in gallery form. Here's your look at the new Diamond Select. This is the DC Gallery of Green Arrow. Falling overboard during a South Seas cruise, wealthy playboy Oliver Queen washed up on a near-desolate starfish island. Facing starvation, Queen fashioned makeshift a bow and arrows to hunt game, becoming an ace archer in his many months marooned on the Pacific Isle. After his rescue, Queen attended a costume party in Robin Hood regalia and foiled a robbery using his hard-won archery skills. Thrilled by the experience, Queen decided to continue fighting for the innocent and downtrodden as the Emerald Archer known as Green Arrow. This PVC diorama of Green Arrow is based on his appearance in DC Comics. It is cast in high-quality plastic and features collectible quality paint applications. Now, before we extensively get into this review, the first thing I'm going to do is offer you the service that I always offer in these reviews, and that is telling you exactly how tall these statues stand. Taking my trusty tape measure and taking it right to the very top of his bow. After all, that seems to be the highest point on this particular statue. More generously, I could offer you guys the service of telling you that this particular gallery statue of Green Arrow stands at 7.8 inches in height, almost 8 inches. And switching that over to centimeters, because after all, there are people out there that measure their collectibles in centimeters. I know I do. You're looking at a statue standing 20 centimeters exactly. Now, truth be told, I did follow the exploits of Green Arrow through the pages of Justice League growing up. Although most of the time my focus was more on the Caped Crusader Batman, the Man of Steel Superman, Wonder Woman, and even Flash before I really looked at, say, cases like Green Arrow. My friends actually would collect the Superpowers figures. I had a few myself, and one of my friends had the Green Arrow figure, and that seemed to be the figure I gravitated towards the most. I just kind of liked the fact that I thought he had a neat-looking design. Kind of reminded me of something I would see from Rocket Robin Hood, also a staple for me growing up. But I really wasn't into Green Arrow as much as I am now. Chalk a lot of that up to the fact of his appearances in the Justice League Unlimited cartoon, which really resurged my interest in this particular character, but really wasn't there initially. Ever since then, ever since his appearances in Justice League Unlimited, I've really fallen for this particular design of character. I really like the neat aspects of the classic look of Green Arrow. While I wasn't really as big of a fan of the TV series Green Arrow, it's really his classic costume that has won me over. And I love the fact that Diamond Select, for their choice for a gallery statue representation of the Green Archer, decided to go classic costume. Even though they have done the TV series of Green Arrow as well. Let's get a good look at this statue, get a good gander at it. I guess what we could first start with is the top section of what seems to be a building. This pedestal serves as a perfect placement for Green Arrow's footing because he's standing atop of it, kind of leaning his way, crunched over the top of this building, where you can quite easily see the city surroundings around him. Making sure, of course, there's no crime that's happening in his watchful eyes. Really nice detailing that they've added to the particular statue's base. I mean, it does look like granite, or it looks like concrete done at the top here. Even the brick facing as well. The individual bricks have personality in the fact that they've speckled some white across that. And even like individual bricks have these chips and cracks in it, so they have a life of their own. I really like the coloring that they added to the concrete. Concrete has some chips and natural cracks to the sides, and even on the top there as well, where he's planted his feet, have some cracks and a little additional divot points and stuff like that. I really think the base itself, small, yes. Well, to be fair, the statue itself is small also, but it's just enough base that adds enough personality to it. I would certainly love to have this on the edge of a shelf, for example, where I could have Green Arrow kind of looking off to the distance. As for the actual archer himself, you can see that they've got 2 feet planted, as 2 feet would be on a human being. One thing I do like, though, is one foot is very flatly planted, while the other foot is arched back. And one thing that gives us some additional texturing that we can look at on the undersoles of his boots. But it also gives some extra character and story. Some personality always goes a long way when it comes to the way that they poise these statues. And for someone like Green Arrow, this is a perfect pose, if you ask me, to display this particular character. If we get some close-up details, first we'll look at his face and we'll kind of work our way down. Yes, the classic design of Green Arrow has always been my fancy, at least again since I started watching him in Justice League Unlimited. This Errol Flynn sort of design of Green Arrow where he's got the pointed beard goatee really is something that still to this day is my preferred look for Green Arrow. I love the blonde hair that they've given him, as well as the blonde coloring in his goatee. Just again, love that little point right there. Boy, that does go a long way for me. His eyes are white, so you can't make out his pupils. I think that's a good, smart choice on their part, because whenever you get masked figures, I prefer the look of white pupils, as opposed to actually something where you can see their actual pupils, as opposed to white eyeballs. I like the fact that they just gave him a superpowers look to this particular character. When you look at the 2 different tones of green, there's technically even more than that, but the primary color of his dark tunic is this kind of dark forest green. It mimics quite nicely kind of like the look of leather. His boots really does the best job of that, because you can see like the texturing to the type of material that would have existed had this not been made out of plastic. Some nice seam work with the stitching done around the back ankle section, as well as the front footing, the front foot guard, I suppose, of his boots. And again, some really nice detailing added there as well. The greens make up several different tones here on this particular character. It's not just really technically 2 tones of green. When you really look at it, his quiver is represented here in a lighter shade of green to, well, it's not quite the same green as used for his leggings. The leggings actually, even if you look at them, have some additional shading added to them as well. So it's not even just one green. They've airbrushed quite nicely some additional kind of outlined sections where they've done it around the musculature of his thighs, for example. You see a little bit more of it happening right here. It really does add a whole lot of extra dynamic depth to like the design of his particular legs here, like the how muscular they appear really does stand a lot more, the fact that they're able to add some additional airbrushing there as well. Then you got the tunic itself, which is made up of 2-tone green, the darker green that we've already had a look at, the lighter, almost like a light citrus yellowish green. Trying to incorporate as many food descriptions as I possibly can, but it's a kind of a lighter yellowy green that makes up the top collar section as well as the middle section of his tunic. This also gives you an opportunity to see the G logo on his front belt buckle that really stands out nicely, even from a distance stands out nicely against the backdrop of the darker greens around it. Really happy with how this one turned out. Even like the flesh tone that they went with. Although I do admit, though, the arms seem like it's slightly a different color than his face. But I guess you could chalk it up to tanning, perhaps. Maybe why his arms are a little bit more of a rosier red than perhaps the complexion of his face here. And then we go ahead and look at the back of his quivers. Full armament of arrows. In fact, it doesn't even look like he's drawn one arrow so far. As you can see that the quiver is fully stocked with all of the tips, or all of the ends of the arrows. Each one of them have their own detailing done to them. Some nice airbrushing added in there as well. So it's not just one simple color of green. Some additional cracks and kind of indentations added to the back quiver section. And there's a few little fastened points on the corners as well. Most definitely, there's a lot to feast your eyes on this particular statue. As for the cording that they used for the bow, I'm glad actually that they went with an elasticized thread as opposed to using plastic. Plastic always is something that you would have to worry about breaking if it gets clipped. And while I wouldn't entertain the idea of doing this a lot, at least it shows that it's a real elasticized cord, something which you could almost even imagine he'd be able to really pull back and fire off one of his arrows. The statue isn't big at all, but to be fair, I think if they had made it larger, I don't think it would inherit any more details than what they've already been able to cram into this small statue. The benefit of it as well is Diamond Select are always churning out some amazing gallery statues. Some are larger than this, some are a lot larger than this, and space always becomes a big concern. So when they are able to take characters that I really like now, like the classic designed Green Arrow, and when they're able to release it on a smaller scale like this, it only means that you can get more of these pieces and put them on display. Like I said, I don't have a whole lot of display space left when it comes to a lot of these statues, as you certainly have seen enough of these covered on this channel before in the past. So again, I really like the fact that they kept the scale and the size small enough on Green Arrow that I can pick up a piece like this and I still have space for others to add on to. As I said, I wasn't a big fan of Green Arrow growing up. Reading him only in the comics, him and characters like Red Tornado, Martian Manhunter, even like Plastic Man, even Hawkman really weren't characters that I was all that interested in. Chalk it up to the fact that as a kid I was just more of a snob and I was really only looking for pages that featured Batman and Superman. And like I said, all the other characters were just characters in the background. This wasn't until, of course, we got ourselves the follow-up series on the TV set, Justice League. The Justice League animated series really introduced me, at least, to characters I knew that were in the comics for decades, but now I was kind of getting an introduction to them, and it was through that I fell for characters like Hawkgirl and Martian Manhunter, which I really didn't follow their comic exploits up to that point. Justice League Unlimited even opened the door further by bringing in a lot of secondary characters of which I would not really have followed in the comics, but now all of a sudden we get introduced to the characters like Hawk and Dove. We would have got introduced to Question, and more importantly, in like one of the first episodes, if I'm not mistaken, the first episode, Initiation, we got introduced to Green Arrow, and I was a big fan of this character ever since. I love the fact that when it came to this particular gallery statue release from Diamond Select, they opted to go classic design, and boy oh boy does this statue scream classic design. Short of the fact that he doesn't have his archer's hat on, everything else about this guy is very reminiscent of the comics I would have grown up with, and certainly reminiscent to the original Superpowers Green Arrow that I played with at my friend's house. I love the fact that they kept the scale also small on this one as well. You don't always have to go larger over top statues. Sometimes just as effective the statues are on smaller scale as some of their bigger counterparts. So there's really, again, a lot of stuff going on with this guy in a positive way. A great looking sculpt and exquisite looking detailing. Diamond Select have really knocked one out of the park. If you manage to pick up this one for yourself, let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think of it, or just based on this review, and this review alone, would you consider picking up the gallery statue release of Green Arrow? Today we were having a look at the brand new release, the Diamond Select DC Comics Green Arrow Gallery Statue. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below if you haven't done so already. Make sure you hit that bell notification if you haven't done so already. And stay tuned, because there's going to be a whole lot of new statues coming soon to this channel, so keep your peepers peeled. As always guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.